What is up, guys? DS3TV here, and we are here to watch, excuse me, most childish conflicts between countries. This is a video I picked out myself. I seen this like a couple days ago, and I said I'm gonna save it just to watch for a day when I don't have anything else to watch on, like anything, like any other suggestions or anything. So, yeah, that day has come, and yes, we are gonna get into it. Be on the lookout Friday. I'm gonna have 4 videos for you guys. That fourth video is gonna be something different. It's not gonna be the reaction videos that you usually watch, but hopefully you guys will like it because it's something new and something creative, and it, it's something that I actually am gonna put some work into. So hopefully you guys like it, and I can make it like a weekly thing that I do, maybe every week. Talk to you guys. Well, I say talk to you guys like I'm getting off of the video. We're going into the video now, but yeah, here it is, and all right, play. Play.
Why is Saudi Arabia considering digging up the entire border with Qatar and physically turning the country into an island? Recently I made a poll and about half voted for this topic, so here we go. This video is a collaboration with Anubis. A lot of countries throughout history have acted surprisingly similar to small children, making alliances and only playing with their friends, taking stuff from each other if possible, both riches and territory, bullied each other if they got on the wrong side. To look civilized, these
That's how I see. That's how I see like most countries' conflicts, basically. And they, and it's weird how they get mad at kids like for having like those minor conflicts or whatever. But then they actually have those conflicts still don't go away when you grow up. Like it's a lot of those conflicts when you grow up. So it's kind of weird.
These actions have often been excused with reasons such as religion, liberation of a people, or for freedom. Much of this has led to war, which really isn't much fun. People die and there's a lot of destruction. But here's a list of interesting conflicts between countries which didn't turn into conventional war. Some of these disputes seem childish and petty, some don't. But hopefully they're all interesting on their own. I'll try to avoid deciding who's right or wrong, I'm simply not qualified to make that call. Probably the cutest dispute is between Canada and Denmark. It's easy to forget that the Kingdom of Denmark is the 12th largest country by area in the world when counting the big chunk of ice in the ocean that is Greenland. This also means that Denmark and Canada share a maritime border up in the Arctic. Caught in the middle is a disputed island, Hans Island, which both countries claim. The battle so far has been fought by each country sending soldiers regularly to raise their country's flag and take down the other country's flag. Furthermore, the Canadians will leave a bottle of whiskey every time, which the Danes would swap for a bottle of snaps. Recently the value of the Arctic is becoming clearer and this gimmick has stopped though. Another incident involving Canada is the trash dispute between Canada and the Philippines, which began around 2013. A Canadian company sent 103 containers labeled as recyclable plastic from Canada to the Philippines. When it arrived it was claimed to in fact contain household trash such as food waste, diapers and that sort. Well, the Philippines were not too happy with the shipment of what turned out to be garbage and asked Canada to take it back. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau explained that unfortunately Canada had environmental laws which made them consider it illegal for them to re-import the garbage, but they would work on it. Canada argued that it was not a dangerous type of waste. For a few years there was a discussion about which kind of trash they were actually dealing with, while the trash stayed in the Philippines. The president of the Philippines, Duterte, said, "Let's quarrel with Canada, I'll declare war against them. Load up the ship and I'll advise Canada that your garbage is on the way. Prepare a grand reception, eat it if you want." Diplomatic relations between the two countries deteriorated until 2019 when by agreement between the two countries more than half of the trash began its return to Canada. I think everybody knows the feeling when somebody doesn't appreciate what you give them, but I also think everybody knows and can relate to the feeling when somebody sends you hundreds of containers of garbage. The Philippines has an ongoing dispute with Iceland as well. Iceland was not supportive of the Philippines drug war.
I feel like everybody would be mad if they were in the Philippines position. Like, that's not even a childish conflict. That's just that's the honest dispute that I would have with a person. Like, don't send me trash. And then say, "Oh, I can't send it back to your country because, that's not like we have a different environmental laws." But you sent it out. Like, no, I probably would be mad too. And again, I'm not saying I don't like Canada or I don't like the Philippines. I love both countries. Just saying I understand where the Philippines is coming from.
War, which Iceland claimed abused human rights and said there was killing without fair trials. Iceland presented the case to the United Nations Human Rights Council, where 18 countries voted to side with Iceland, while 14 countries voted against the resolution. That made President Duterte of the Philippines say, "What's the problem of Iceland? Ice only. That's your problem. You have too much ice, and there's no clear night and day there."
I just wonder why has he been in two conflicts? Like, I understand Canada has two, but it's like two different conflicts that's kind of been questionable. This last one especially has been kind of questionable, but the first one wasn't. You know, the first one, like, I feel like definitely the Philippines were in the right, but this one I don't know if the Philippines were in the right in this one. I don't know.
Which is hard to disagree with. They do indeed have a lot of ice in the winter, and during the summer the sun sets after midnight and already rises again around 3 o'clock in the morning, which you have to admit is confusing.
I think you guys could tell I lost my point in the middle of what I was saying, so yeah.
He continued with, "So you can understand why there's no crime, no policemen either, and they just go about eating ice." Again, he has a point. I have actually met a few people from Iceland, and they did indeed not seem like criminals, and they also did enjoy ice cream. But otherwise I can't say who's right or wrong. Duterte considered cutting diplomatic ties with Iceland. Since then the Philippines has rejected aid from Iceland and the situation is still not resolved, but no further escalations have occurred. Iceland is not the first country that comes to mind when you think of war. They don't even have a standing army. But they were actually at war with the United Kingdom in the beginning of the 60s. The Cold War. The Cod War. Like the fish. It began when Iceland expanded its fishing zone from 4 to 12 nautical miles. All other NATO countries opposed the expansion. Without fish, the UK's national dish, fish and chips, would be reduced to nothing and chips, which they considered unacceptable. The UK said they'd continue fishing there anyway and they would bring their 48 warships. The Icelandic Coast Guard and the UK Navy continued shooting a bit after each other over this, until Iceland threatened to leave NATO and kick out the Americans stationed there, which made the United States put pressure on the United Kingdom and they found an agreement and the first Cod War ended with no casualties. Well, the first one was nothing compared to the sequel.
I was gonna guess there had to be a sequel since they said first.
About 10 years later, Iceland expanded its territorial waters once again, this time to 50 nautical miles. The UK was not happy and a second Cod War began. This time Germany, Denmark and Belgium also got involved on the UK's side and they sent their navies. The war was much bloodier and more deadly. One guy actually got killed. In the end, Iceland said stop or we'll leave NATO, which once again worried the US, and the parties reached an agreement, and that was the conclusion of the Second Cod War. You know the drill by now. A couple of years went by, Iceland extended their waters to 200 nautical miles, UK said no, warships, Third Cod War, Iceland
So this just kept happening.
threatened no NATO, no US, agreement, the end. I expect the 20th Cod War will be Iceland expanding their territorial waters to 3 miles away from any other country.
Yep.
Though it sounds silly fighting over fish, they are of course a really valuable resource and plenty of disputes have been fought over territorial waters. France also had some disagreements with the United Kingdom over fishing rights, especially around the British Crown dependency of Guernsey, just right off the French.
We know that the French and England, they have not liked each other for a very long time.
Coast. The so-called Great Scallop War. In 2016, France had a small fishing dispute with their southern neighbor Italy. The French Coast Guard arrested an Italian fishing vessel and fined them 8,000 euros for illegally fishing in French waters. After they paid, France realized they had mistaken the maritime border, and unfortunately all this happened in the Italian waters. Another one of their neighbors they had fishing dispute with is Canada. Yep, because of the islands St. Pierre and Miquelon, France and Canada share a maritime border. But they could not really agree where to draw the border, so they had to ask a few friends for their opinion and settle the matter by arbitration. And since France insists on not just being a European country, but a country all over the world, they also share a border with Brazil, with whom they ended up having the lobster war with. Brazil told France they should stop fishing lobsters 160 kilometers from their coast. It quickly turned into a competition in who could bring more and the bigger battleships. Brazil argued that lobsters crawl along the continental shelf, while France maintained that lobsters swim and they therefore could be caught by any fishing vessel from any country. When it comes to the king of sea disputes, the southern China Sea is right now the messiest part. It's important because the sea is rich in both natural gas and oil and is one of the world's most heavily trafficked shipping routes. Malaysia claims this part as theirs, which doesn't seem like a problem until you notice Brunei in the middle, who claims this overlapping part.
Yep.
Vietnam is nicely aligning with Malaysia's claim. Oh, okay, they're overlapping too. Then there's the Philippines claim, which is overlapping again.
Yep.
Oh, and China also has a small claim, which is intersecting every other
It's
claim,
everything,
and also
yeah.
the water around these Indonesian islands. Taiwan's claim is easy, since the People's Republic of China and the Republic of China both claim each other, they also claim each other's claim. Recently, turning small reefs into islands and putting people on them to strengthen their claims has been a hot strategy. I think I'll avoid talking more about this. I have no desire to offend anybody, and I'll just move nicely along. In the qualification rounds for the 1970 FIFA World Cup, Honduras and El Salvador had to play each other 3 times. Tensions were already high between the two countries, and Honduras had seen a large increase in El Salvadoran immigration before due to much more available farming land. The first game ended with Honduras winning 1-0 and some fans started beating each other up. The next game was won 3-0 by El Salvador, and even bigger riots followed. There was a lot of violence in the streets and 10,000 people had to flee. When the third and decisive match was upon them, the so-called football war began. El Salvador won the third game 3-2 in overtime. El Salvador dissolved all diplomatic ties with Honduras and sent their military. They started bombing each other, and actually this conflict should probably not be on the list, since it turned into full-scale war.
Yeah.
Probably the pettiest dispute on this list is the Telegram crisis, which was between Denmark and Germany. During the beginning of the 40s, tensions was running quite high, and Germany was pursuing a rather aggressive foreign strategy. While occupying most of their neighbors, the occupation in Denmark was mild compared to the occupation in other countries such as Poland. The Danish King Christian X celebrated his 72nd birthday, and Hitler wrote a letter congratulating him. The king probably received many such birthday wishes and got a bit lazy, so he chose the copy-paste method and sent the same reply. Giving my best thanks, King Christian. Hitler was furious and didn't consider response personal enough, so the ambassadors of each country were sent home, and the entire Danish army was expelled from Jutland, and the Danish Prime Minister and all of his government was replaced.
What?
Another petty conflict back in history was the Pig War. Canobis, you're from around those parts, right? Would you mind explaining it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. In 1846, the border between the United States and Canada, which was British at the time, was defined by the Oregon Treaty. Now, note, this was after the whole shared Oregon country thing, so the US-Canada border in the area was mostly defined by now. Keyword, however, mostly, since the language used in the treaty was rather sloppy, to say the least. Namely, in the Strait of Juan de Fuca, between Canada's Vancouver Island and the North American mainland, as the border in the area was simply described as the canal in the middle, which did not help fully define who the islands in the middle of the strait belonged to. And so naturally, the two countries just considered the true border to be whichever one gave them the best deal. This all culminated 13 years later, when American Lyman Cutler shot a pig when it ate some of his potatoes, infuriating the pig's British owner, Charles Griffin. The British authorities threatened to arrest Cutler, prompting fellow American settlers to organize militias. Britain later sent 3 large warships, and so the US responded by sending soldiers.
All because of the death of a pig.
In the end, during the standoff, with both militaries ready to strike, they finally reached a deal about the islands. And the only casualty in the conflict was the pig.
Thanks. The Cold War itself could almost be considered the champion of petty conflicts.
Actually.
The United States and the Soviet Union were fighting by sending the most gadgets into space, winning the most medals at the Olympics, and building the biggest bombs, simply to convince the rest of the world while their lifestyle was superior.
Yep.
If it was not for the proxy wars all over the world where they supported competing fractions and millions of people died, which makes it less fun. In 2017, around the Persian Gulf, Qatar had a fallout with Saudi Arabia, and most of the other countries in the Gulf Cooperation Council. They claimed Qatar supported terrorism, they didn't like the Qatari network Al Jazeera, and just thought Qatar was becoming a bit too good friends with Iran. Well, they quickly closed the diplomatic connections and closed the airspace for planes heading to Qatar, so they had to fly around. Saudi Arabia, who shares the border on land with Qatar, also completely shut the border, so nothing could cross. After the border closed, Qatar had to import all of its food and other supplies from elsewhere. Though the border is closed and nothing is moving across it, Saudi Arabia suggested digging up the entire border and physically turning Qatar into an island. They had built the Salwa Canal. One idea was to leave a narrow strip on the Qatari side where they could store all their undecided nuclear waste. They suggested reasons such as tourism and slightly faster shipping by bypassing Qatar. But really nobody can deny it's just the most symbolic way to say F you to someone by cutting them off like that. The GCC countries have a history of spending vast amounts of money on prestige projects to impress everyone else, such as the tallest building in the world and the biggest indoor skiing resort in the desert. To be honest, I think it's a great solution if you don't like somebody. Just turn them into an island. Spain and Gibraltar haven't exactly gotten perfectly along, so I would suggest the Spanish government just cut out Gibraltar. Or even Denmark could be neatly made into islands if Germany did a bit of digging. In fact, I'll encourage and challenge the German government to dig out Denmark. To stop escalating small disputes like these and solve them, we have the framework of the United Nations. But how does it actually work? Check out Kenobi's great video on exactly that topic. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you didn't like it, well, please tell me why. You can leave a comment and I'll look at your feedback. You can also find me on Patreon at Spaghetti Road and also on Instagram.
Alright, that's the end of the video. And so that was a great video. Some really funny conflicts that happened. Yeah. And I guess you can see my cat over here, Daffy, decided to get into the video. But yeah, so yeah, she's just chilling out. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so talk to you guys in the next video, and watch out for the videos that come out on Friday, and peace.